you mentioned something on a recent video that you basically started your journey at like around 2013 or something like that.
Yep.
I was like, wow, bingo, 2013. It was right after Thanksgiving that I found this motorcycle.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
so I was born in 1970, so I'm an old guy. But anyway, my entire life has been about two wheels. Initially with the bicycles, my parents got me a tricycle when I was 3, and I believe I was on two wheels without the training wheels by the time I was 4, right?
Yeah.
And back in the 70s, what do? You pedal around the neighborhood all day long, and you get home as late as you can, you know? And that was just the thing. There was no phone, there was no internet. The video games were at the arcade if you had quarters, that type of thing. It was a different time frame. But anyway, I remember watching television, as a kid, and heavily influenced by what you saw on TV. And Evel Knievel was on Saturdays, ABC's Wild World of Sports.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat. The human drama of athletic competition. This is ABC's Wide World of Sport.
I became the Murray Street hooligan after watching Evel Knievel attempt all those jumps. And, I would get on my bike with the local street friends, and all my friends were girls on the street. So I was jumping like the Barbie RV and all that stuff. And we would have fun doing that. So spent a lot of time getting used to the mechanics of being on two wheels. You have to start somewhere. In the late 90s, I worked at a large office. I had a bunch of friends there. My friend Dave and I started talking bikes. Oh, let's get bikes. A couple other guys ended up buying Ducati Monsters from the dealership. It's like, wow, those are great bikes. But I don't think I want to go all in that way,
Right.
So Dave and I were talking about bikes. Someone else in the office found out this is how things happen, and it's really amazing. So I get a tap on the shoulder. I have a bike in the garage. I heard you might be interested. I'm like, what's going on? So anyway, that was a Honda Hawk GT from 88, 89. And my friend Dave bought it instead. I was really glad he bought it. The bike eventually went to New York. It was knocked over way too many times in the street. And he had to sell it. That's the end of the 90s. Jumping ahead to, Thanksgiving 2013. I had some space in my life. Work was doing okay. I had some money in my pocket. And here's the story. And all these bikes have stories. I had my own business, and I collaborated work with a friend of mine. So we went back and forth. Initially, probably around 2006 or 7, his brother got married, bought a house in Connecticut. It was like a huge property, horses, bunch of different buildings, and there's a motorcycle in one of the buildings. And that was the conversation from 06. I had no idea about anything. So I jump ahead to 13. Oh, my brother is getting divorced and he's selling the property. I'm like, oh, that's too bad. Like, I don't know this guy. I've never met this guy. I've never talked to him. That's too bad. 5 minutes later, I'm like, light bulb, wait a minute. How about the motorcycle, wherever building that was in? Oh, I don't know. Can you call your brother? Let's find out, right? So he called me back, and I said, hey, I'm really sorry about the news and all that, but wasn't there a motorcycle on your property? And he goes, not really sure. And he had a whole bunch of buildings. And I said, hey, man, if you got a second, go look, send me some photos, and I might be able to take this off your hands. And that's exactly what happened. I received these 2 photos a few minutes later, 2013. I guess he didn't have like the greatest phone camera, right? But and you have to see this. The bike looks like it was sitting at the bottom of the ocean. We're talking Titanic style photos, right? Really bad. And I looked at it and I'm like, that's a KZ650. means nothing to me at the time. I
Right.
just know it's an old bike and I need something to work on.
Right.
How much do you want for it? Well, I just need to get rid of it. You can have it. Perfect. I'll be there Saturday morning. We rent the van, pick up the bike. And that's where the journey begins. Now, I know my way around cars. I had a Pontiac Fiero back in the 80s, and I had that car for a long time. And if you don't figure out how to fix things, you're in trouble with any vehicle like that. I had a girlfriend's dad who showed me how to pack bearings and do brakes and things like that. And he was instrumental for getting me under the hood. And he told me about his dad that passed it on to him and all that. My dad was the complete opposite. And I don't want to get into that. Just not good with anything that fired up.
You know, it's so funny because talking about that, we had a neighbor, my wife and I had a neighbor early on that could do anything. And you could ask him for help. And what he would do is hand you a service manual and tell you that if you ran into problems to come get him. And all he would do was get you through the problem.
The KZ650 probably sat for 15 years. That was my best guess. The old registration was underneath the seat in the pocket.
Wow.
Right. I started tracking down the name and the address, and I found a phone number and I called it. Now, there's a certain danger to this. Oh, I want my bike back. Well,
That's right.
I didn't pay anything for it, and I'm glad to give it back to you. And that would have been the end of the story. This kid answers the phone, and I say, hey, do you know who is this so-and-so live here? Oh, that's my dad. My mom and dad divorced years ago. My dad doesn't live with us anymore, but he kind of lives down the street.
Right.
Now, they lived up the street. He lived down the street, and the motorcycle was parked in the middle.
Oh, perfect.
Right. So it's all in the neighborhood. And there's more to this, you know, properties get sold and all that stuff. But anyway, I spoke to the kid. I left my name and number. I said, hey, if you reach out to your dad, he recognized the bike as soon as I described it to him.
Right.
I never got a call.
Wow.
So now I'm like, okay, I'm at the mercy of the registry, which is always like the big question mark with these old things. I worked the bike. The bike starts running, not great. You know, I'm learning my way of how to work with points, and I'm working with the old stuff. I put new plugs in there, fresh gas. I must have cleaned those carbs a dozen times the first time. And those are simple Makunis, right?
Right.
So anyway, I get the bike running. First kick. Jump. Go to the registry. My friend Mike's like, you got to go on a Friday. You have to pull the last ticket on the Friday. I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, well, first of all, there won't be 300 people ahead of you, and whoever's at the desk wants to go home. So you got a 50-50 versus a 20-90, right? So I'm like, okay. So I did that. I went in late on a Friday. I pulled the last ticket. I was one of the last 5 people to get called. And the person that helped me out, I said, you know, well, a friend of mine gave me the bike. I have a bill of sale, 0. I should have known better. 0 is not a good number. They need to collect some tax, so at least put $100 or $200 on it. So anyway, I went back and forth. I didn't want to reveal too much, and she goes, "Well, no, you need a previous registration. That's what you need in this state for something that old." And I reluctantly pulled out the registration from my bag. And she looked at it and we figured it out. I came home with a plate, and that's the end of the story, right? Now I have a plate. Now I can put some money into it, get the tires. No, I spent like 3 or 4 months rolling this thing around with the the rubber had turned to plastic. It was
Right.
difficult moving stuff in the garage. So that's 13. I received my motorcycle endorsement in 14. So I had the bike ready by that time. And boy, it's been a joy to own this bike. It really has. And every year I learn a little bit more. I put a little bit more into the bike. As you see in the photo, that's the original paint.
Wow. Wow, that's awesome.
I'll send you some info later so you
Right.
can see how I got it and where it came from.
Yeah.
But it's really a connection you make with the bike. Like, how much time do you want to put into this? How much elbow grease and how much patience do you really have to get through this project? Right?
You know, that's the if I try to, and it's hard to convey that message to people that haven't been through it, right? So because you could you got the bike for free, and then let's say that all in you're $1,500, which may be a lot of money. But you're $1,500 into this over the course of years. You couldn't have went and bought a $1,500 motorcycle and had the same connection to this one, or a $5,000 motorcycle that you have with it. There's something about, I get goosebumps kind of thinking about it. There's something that's kind of magical about when you took this thing that had been left in a barn, looked like it'd been on the bottom of the ocean, right? And you're the person that kind of nurses it back to health, right? And I use those terms on purpose, right? It's because there is something that is alive about these things after you get them running, right? They do have a soul. And I know that not to be true. I know they're not. I know they're inanimate objects. I know all that to be true. But there's that connection that makes them real. You know, and
Absolutely.
it's because you did it. And there's nothing better than showing up at a bike night and everybody else has shiny new bikes and you're rolling in on your 40-year-old motorcycle and knowing that you did it all. But that's what it's about, right? It's about taking this thing, this motorcycle, and you had no knowledge of it before, right? No knowledge of the KZ650, anything that it was about. And there's that journey of discovery that happens along the way. One, you learn how to fix it. You learn everything you can. If this is the way I am, and I assume you may be similar to this, you learn everything you can about it. My wife rides a 1978 Honda Matic, and when she first started riding it, we talked about everything that she would need to talk to people about the motorcycle when people come up and ask her about it. Because the last thing that she wants is to have to point people to me. Right? Meaning they want to empower her to be able to have that same conversation about this 1978 CB400 Honda Matic. And she can have those conversations and to see guys not expected.
Right.
Is what's awesome because she can tell you about it. Although she's done no work on it. She does no maintenance on it. She gets on it and rides it. That's what my job is. But her job is to know everything about it. So she looks like she did everything on it. So they have to double take the whole thing. And so there's that journey of discovery. You know, it's like a couple of weeks ago, I talked to Pete from Pete's Classic Cycle, and he is in the Kawasaki lane. And I totally appreciate that. I can appreciate that somebody that is committed to that lane, right? Two-stroke Kawasaki's and Z1s, I totally understand it. I can't stay in that lane because I love the odd things that I don't know anything about that forces me to learn something else. You know,
exactly.
Go ahead.
So here I am with a 1979 KZ650. It's a B3 model, spoke wheels, single disc brake up front. I'm happy. You know, this thing's going down the road, and I must say it's a beautiful bike. Now, at the time, you roll into a parking lot with other bikes, I don't know what I'm looking at. That's the thing. You just said that. I know everything about this bike. I don't know anything about that bike. So over those months and years and everything else, the following year, I bought a Harley. I bought an '06 Sportster 883R because my friend had one. And I figured, well, maybe I'll make more friends because he has one. And, you know, it's a different conversation. Now, the bike was ready to go. It was a deal too good to be true. And I thought to myself, an '06, well, that's got to be reliable, right? So I wanted the reliable and the questionable. So anyway, I bought the bike. It's still in the garage. It will be up for sale this spring. There's a couple more bikes on this list I want to talk about. But anyway, that bike and I never got along. I would prefer to ride this, but I like looking at the Harley. It's all black. It's got the race replica tank. I love looking at it.
Yeah.
And the previous owner had put some juicy, he did the exhaust in the intake, so I didn't have to do that. I haven't touched the bike. I have not touched the bike. It's oil changes. I did some carburetor stuff. I am now a carburetor expert. I actually manufacture gaskets for friends and things like that. You know, so it's like, all right, let's do it. But anyway, that bike never jived. But, you know, for the one or two times the Kawasaki needed new coils or something because they were old, and, you know, it did leave me on the road one time because of the coils. One of them failed. I figured I need a second bike because I have to go to these meetings and I have to talk to these people, right?
Right.
So you start learning about other bikes and everything and stuff like that. At some point, like in those early, you know, this is around 14, 15, I'm at a bike night at a local A&W. And I know a few faces. I'm starting to learn names and things like that. So I went there, and this guy rides in on this EBR. Now, I had seen the EBR ads in the magazines. And so he rides, he's got this beautiful black EBR, Eric Buell Racing.
Right.
And Eric Buell worked for Harley and the Buell bikes and all that. And when I had the Harley, I actually thought, wow, maybe I should go to a Buell next, that type of thing. But I had no idea what else to. So anyway, here comes the EBR. It's all blacked out, helmet's blacked out. Wow, this guy must be cool. I want to talk to this guy about his bike. And he parked it right in front of me. He pulls off the helmet. I'm like, this is an old man.
Yeah.
And that's when I met Don. And he was about 65 at the time. And we instantly became friends. And we became close friends. We became brothers. We became everything. Don was my Yoda. But he's the guy who really got me to the next level. Like the appreciation of motorcycles. Not just what I have in the garage, but all motorcycles. He got me into motorcycle racing. He got me into everything. And Don passed away at the end of 22, which was a great loss for us all. But I just owe it all to him.
Everybody needs a Yoda or a Don.
Absolutely.
Everybody needs one. And just the fact that, you know, one of the main reasons why I started this channel was because my Yoda, Howard, had such amazing stories. And when he passed away, they stopped unless somebody tells them for him.
Correct.
And you just mentioning his name, I get goosebumps just thinking about it, because that just means, and you know, you only stop living when people stop talking about you.
Exactly.
You know, and so if people have never met him in his life while he was alive, that he still gets to live on in this mythology, which I love. I think is incredible. So that we all need one of those, and we should all actively seek to find one. And because there are people out there that are willing to give this information to people. And, you know, when I met, and Don, you may have been the same thing for Don, and you can mention that we'll move forward, but I met Howard at a point in time when he was there were only two boys in his family. He didn't have any children. He had a couple of nephews, but his brother was sick and was dying. And I was a needed distraction. But my enthusiasm for something that maybe he had lost enthusiasm for, right? Just he had stuff around is what he needed at that point in time in his life. And so we became fast friends because of that, because I didn't see him as they'd been in his yard and his barns, all these, it's probably 70, 80 plus motorcycles, just in different states of disrepair. And they had been in his yard for years. So in his barn, so it was not anything that he's not seeing them new. Well, then you get this guy that walks through and is enamored by all of your stuff that everybody else says is trash. Right. And I'm over the moon. And the ones I want are the ones that are deepest in the dirt. Right. How can we save that one? And there was something special about that chance encounter that happened. But long story short is we all need one. We all need somebody in our life that that is a win-win situation. What I mean by that is that we're excited about this. They have all the knowledge. They want to give it to somebody else.
Right.
They don't want to keep it. They don't want to keep it. They want somebody to be passionate about what they're passionate about, and then they'll do whatever they can. Right? It's like you mentioned with Don. If he didn't know it, he'd research it for you.
Absolutely.
Because they want to be that, they want to keep giving back because somebody in their life did it for them.
It's a love that you develop over time. And the more, we still call Don the encyclopedia, but the more you know, the more you can share. And it actually relaxes the people you're talking to. Like, oh, don't worry about that. It's a simple thing or whatnot. Or maybe you shouldn't buy that motorcycle. He would have that information on the ready. All right, nice and easy. When he came to me and he said, I want to buy another motorcycle, and I wanted to have this much horse. I don't want to pay over this. Yeah, you're going to buy a BMW R9T. And he went out and bought it. I actually gave something back to him. Like I had that ready. Sometime, again, I like buying bikes in the fall for some reason. Right. At the end of 18, I think that was still summer, August, September. And there's a big story I'm going to leave out of this, how I got to this bike. But my friend Kirk was riding in northern New Hampshire with his buddy. He had engine failure.
Oh, gosh.
The nearest dealership in New Hampshire, he contacted, they delivered the bike. Month or two later, I'm camping in New Hampshire. Where's Kirk's bike? Where's this dealership? It was 2 miles away from where I was. So I'm like, well, I have to go there. I have to go there and see Kirk's bike. What's going on? And I did. I saw his bike on the table in a million pieces. They had taken apart the engine to figure out anyway, this dealership is amazing. They've got like 500 used bikes in there.
Wow.
They're now a Triumph dealership. Yeah. So Kirk's 2012 Triumph Tiger developed the problem. Right. And they took care of it. But anyway, I'm going through the showroom. I'm like, wow, I'd like to get one of these Triumphs. So I sat on a 2015 675R, the Street Triple, with 0 miles. So this is a 3-year-old leftover from 15 that never got sold. This is a brand new 18. I'm like, I think I can get a deal on this. So I ended up making a deal, bringing the bike home. So Don gets involved. He goes, I'll give you a ride up. So Kirk's riding up to get his first service. I'm getting a ride up to pick up my bike. We get into the parking lot. I look at Don and I say, Don, give me a wallet. And he's like, why am I going to give you my wallet? And I said, well, you're about to spend a lot of money. He goes, I don't need any more bikes. And what they did, and I knew the bike. I had looked at it and I took photos of it. But they'll pull out a special bike into the vestibule right at the doorway. Right. And as soon as I looked up the stair, I'm like, oh, damn it. They put a Norton up there. So Don ended up buying the 2015 Norton Commando 961 SC. Yeah. One out of 50 sent to the US. Yeah. Wow. We had to have it. Anyway, that's the story. So I bought the Triumph. Kirk and I and a few other friends started a Triumph club. Another group of friends, another group of friends. I'm no longer associated with the club. I kind of moved on from there, but it was just a great experience to meet a whole bunch of people that liked a certain brand. Right. And we did rides and, had conversations. We did a Wednesday night kick, what did I call that? Kickstand. We called it Kickstand. So during the pandemic, every Wednesday night we'd fire up Zoom. We have a conversation.
Yeah, yeah.
Really cool. Now, that was a brand new bike with 0 miles. Like, I've changed tires on it. I've done an oil change. I've never bonded with this motorcycle.
Yeah, yeah.
It's too new.
Mhm.
And just the headache I had of setting up software to run diagnostics was more than enough for me to say, I'm a carburetor guy, and this is like, I can do it, but it doesn't bond with me. It's not the same work. So we're still dating. We haven't really bonded. I love the bike. It does everything well. And Don was very happy that I finally bought a real motorcycle, because the KZ and a lot of 70s bikes, lower displacement, middleweights, things like that, they're seen as small motorcycles to a lot of people. Now, I don't need 1,000 cc's to do anything. Well, Eric, you're at 1,100 with the GPZ, and I love that story, by the way. I really do.
Yeah, but I ride it like a 550.
Yeah, exactly. There's no need. There's no need. So Don passed away in December of 22. It was a tough month for me. January rolled around. I don't like winter because I'm not riding. So I'm starting looking for another bike project. I need to fill more space. I've got space anything. And all the things Don ever told me, it's like, I need a real sport bike, like full fairings. And I made a short list. I came up with the bikes that interest me the most. I started crossing them off. I narrowed it down. I want a Honda CBR 900 RR Fireblade.
Oh, wow. You want a nice bike.
And that's what I wanted. So I'm on Marketplace. I'm searching. Anyway, I'm on Marketplace. I'm not even searching for 900 RR anymore. And some person in Connecticut, he is thinning the herd. That was the title. Anyone thinning the herd is my friend, because sure, I'll take that off your hands. This guy's got cars in the backyard, snowmobiles, go-karts, a pile of motorcycles, mostly rollers, because the engines have been removed for the go-karts. And in this corral of about 20 bikes is a Fireblade. And I just cropped this whole picture and I sent it right back. I said, by the way, is that a 97? It goes 99. I said, oh, that's the one I want, So within a 30-second exchange, how much do you want for it? $800.
Oh, sold.
Can I get it tomorrow? Absolutely. It was a done deal. It was a done deal. So last year I spent the majority of the year working on this bike. It didn't take much to get running. It had electrical gremlins, regulator rectifier issues. And that was the only thing that really needed repair. The value of things. I'm a moderator on a Facebook group, KZ650. What I say is, it's worth what you want to sell it for, or it's worth what you want to spend buying it. But as an owner, you are responsible for setting the value on the bike. And as a group of owners, there should be some consensus to what the range might be. And
well,
I know where you're going.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Well,
there are two bikes. I love it.
There are two bikes. One in recent months, the Z2, the Kawasaki Z2 sale for $84,500.
Yeah.
And the same auction house sold a Z1 a few years ago for $42,000. Now, we all know the Z1 is a special machine. They were in competition with Honda back there. Honda had the 650 or the 750, and Kawasaki wanted to up them, and they decided to drop the 750 project and go to 900. So we got the 73 Z1. Is that bike worth $42,000? I mean, in a showroom, pristine, nuts and bolts, everything original, maybe.
It always comes down to, so I've got a couple of, to that guy that spent $42,000. Apparently he thought it was. one of my favorite questions in a particular bike forum or group is, what's my bike worth? And they put up a picture of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because all the people that know and love these bikes tell him it's not worth what he wants.
Right.
I've never understood that. It's like, do you live in a neighborhood, or you live out? Do you live in a neighborhood?
Exactly.
You want your neighbor to sell their house for $200,000 more than yours.
Absolutely.
You do. It's just simple economics. So if somebody's got a Z1 and they post in the Z1 group, or insert whatever motorcycle, we'll just use Z1 since I said it, and I shouldn't say it because I know nothing about it, but they go, I want $25,000 for it. Everybody in the group is going to crush him.
Right.
Nobody's they're going to say it's not worth that. It's this. But hold on, you've got 3 of them in your garage. You should be saying, I hope you sell it for 30.
Absolutely. But
you
that
see
auction, yeah, exactly. But that auction at 42,000 set the bar so high that if you go on Marketplace and you find a decent or even a not decent, you're looking at 15 to 35. That's what everyone wants now. That's why I keep going back. We are responsible for setting the value, not these auction houses, right?
No, and you know why? I'll give you a kind of a, for instance. End of the year last year, I had a friend of mine who had sold his collection. He's getting up in age, and he's early onset Alzheimer's, and so he had to move through his collection. And at one point, he had over 100 motorcycles, and ranging in from turn of the century motorcycles. We're talking 1910s, 1904s, all of this stuff, all the way up to newer motorcycles. His favorite motorcycles were always 305 Scramblers, right? And at one point in time, in the second floor bedroom, he had a bedroom full of them.
Wow.
Like, they were moved upstairs. There were probably 15 motorcycles in this room. In the room next door, he had the 1985, the Z50 Rs, the Christmas specials. So he is selling through his collection, and he sold a large lot of them to this kind of investment group, and then they were then selling them at auction. The problem they did was that they put 9 305 Scramblers in the same auction. Okay, and they're going one after the other after the other. Well, for prices to be driven up, you need to have 2 people in a room willing to buy it. Well, if I know that there's another red one coming up in 2 bikes, it gets to the point, okay, I'll let it go. I'll get to the next one.
Right.
Oh, I'll get to the next one. And sure enough, the first one went pretty good. The middle 7 went pretty less than average. And the last one, because now it's the last one, there's not another one. I passed on all these other ones. So does it say that they're not worth the price that they should be? Because if I pull up vintage price guide, if I pull up a vintage price guide and give the 19, let's just go in the middle. I'll pull up just so I'm not speaking out of school. We'll go to, let's say, a 65. CL77 should go for somewhere in this guide between $1,500 and $11,000, and all of these were in great condition. They went in the 4s.
Wow.
You would have been better off selling them on Marketplace, but because 2 things: you had the wrong audience, and 2, you had too many of the rare bikes. Right? It's hard when you stack them on top of it. So again, it goes back to your original statement. You got to have somebody willing to buy it and somebody willing to sell it for that, because at that point, that determines that value. No different than when the real estate pulls up the comps in the neighborhood of what's sold. And I just wish the groups that we're a part of, the people that are most passionate about these things, I wish they would be more supportive in when people are actually trying to sell it. It seems like this. It seems like we see a motorcycle for sale and we try to beat it down so we can get it cheaper so we can put it in our collection.
I've been giving little bit of thought to this in the last few months, and the topic of barn finds always comes
Yeah.
up. And yeah, sure enough, a lot of the bikes have been pulled out.
Yeah.
Especially in my neck of the woods. I think a little further up north, you're going to find something. But anyway, what is a barn find? Does it have to physically be in a barn? Now, the KZ was in a 2-car garage all by itself in the back corner. One door was closed and the other one was slightly open. And the door was 5 feet away from the road. So anyone could have walked in and rolled this thing out.
Right.
Was that a barn? Yeah, because the Honda, the CBR, wow, left for dead. This thing sat outside,
Yeah, I look at, and it's an interesting question. What denotes or what determines a barn find? I look at them as being abandoned, forgotten.
Yeah.
Anyone that's been like my GPZ could be classified as a barn find, although it wasn't. I wish it would have been in a barn, right? It would have been better off, right? It was outside without spark plugs for 10 years. So I wish it would have been in a barn. To me, as long as it's been forgotten or it's been there for a long time and we're just not going to do anything with it, or just because
that's exactly it.
And it's never going to be brought back to life. It could be in a garage, it could be in a lean-to, it could be in a barn.
Right.
It's like go ahead.
But bringing this stuff back, like your GPZ story, I think that's one of the best stories I've heard in a long time. Your neighbor's bike, you roll it in, engine's locked up, and a few days later, you're on the road.
Yeah.
And you create an entire story out of it, which it changed your life, right?
It should not, everything about that motorcycle should not happen. Meaning, everything about it, mechanically, the only parts I put on that motorcycle, a coil, which came back to bite me, a coil, exhaust gaskets. What else did I do? The spark plugs. That's the only new pieces that were put on this motorcycle. The clutch was taken apart. I rebuilt it by rubbing it on the concrete and putting it back together. The injectors were the original ones. I cleaned the throttle body, and the way that throttle body looked was ridiculous. I'd never seen so much just fuel and you could tell it sat on its side stand, the fuel that just congealed that was in the throttle body. And it should not function. It should sound like a bag of marbles in a dryer, but it doesn't. And it shouldn't. Everything about it is one of those things. That's the part that is kind of magical to me, and I don't know how. I don't know how it ended up that way. I don't know how it worked out and came out that way. I thought it was just going to be an exercise in can I free up this engine?
So
never thought
in summary, that's exactly my point. Is the bikes that you fall in love with for some reason, either you worked on it, you have a story, you took it back from the grave, whatever it might be, and you get it back on the road. And it's because of that you start meeting people, you start going places, you create new stories that would have never happened without that particular motorcycle. So I don't think you're ever going to sell that JPZ.
No, I don't think so. It knows where all the bodies are buried.
Selling this because of the story. And the Honda's in that category too. It was a diamond in the rough. I brought it back. It's my bike. It's on the road. It's great. I'm never going to sell it.
I just sold a bunch of motorcycles just because there's more motorcycles in the queue, right? There's more coming. And I know that this is not the last one, right? I know that there's another one down the line. And what I mean by that is if somebody came up to me and they wanted the GPZ more than I did, it may be something that could move on. Same thing happened with my Honda Dream. I had it. Old friend of mine, I've told this story before. Old friend of mine always wanted a Dream, never had one. He was getting older, late in age. His wife had passed away. Health was waning. And every time I talked to him, he'd say, "Hey, have you found me a Dream yet?" And I said, "No." I said, "Well, look, I got one for you." I said, "I'll sell you mine, but you have to sell it back to me for what you sold it for what I sell it to you for." He said, "No problem." He had it for 1 year and called me up and said, "Hey, come get it." It never left his living room. He just wanted to mark that off his box. Right? I got it back. And so it became one of those things. It's like, okay, it's supposed to be here. And then I get a comment not that long ago on a video, and a guy is telling the story about how he'd like to have a Dream because him and his wife, when they were younger, they had one. His wife has since passed away. Every time he sees one, he thinks about her. Let me know if you want to sell yours. Yeah, I want to sell it to this guy.
Absolutely. Right.
It's
right.
Because and it would be under the same pretense that I sell to you. When you're ready to get rid of it, it's got to come back to me. And because it's just this motorcycle, it's almost like you meet the nicest people on a Honda. This motorcycle is living that journey. So I think that if it's going to mean some more to somebody else, I'm okay with moving it on in hopes that I get it back in the future. It's like the bikes that I sold recently to a guy, a local, and he's got about 90 motorcycles, and if not more. And and I know they're not going anywhere. I know that, hey, when you want to get rid of them, if you want to, he wants to own them. I need the space. We can move them over there and I can get them back from him. So that's kind of the interesting thing that I get very emotionally attached, but I detach emotionally very quickly too. You know what I mean? It's like when the life comes on, like I understand, I can totally see it with the KZ. But when it comes on, it starts to work, and even the horn works, I lose my mind, right?
Oh yeah,
all of those little things. But if somebody else wants it for whatever reason, and I'm okay with moving it on, yeah, I'll move it on. Now, those are the ones that I'm okay to move forward, knowing in hopes that I'll get them back. Like I'll give you a for instance, an example. A couple of years ago, friend of mine contacted me. He had bought at an estate sale. He had bought a pair of 1954, 1957 Zundaps. I think they were 250s, right? I knew nothing about them, but that it had a really cool name, right? And he goes, "Hey, I got them. You can get them both." And I think I may have paid $400 for the pair, right? So he probably paid $200 or something like that. Somebody had to make money. I'm okay with that. So we drive up and get them. And I'm doing research as I'm going through this, and I find some paperwork with them because the same guy owned the whole thing, right? They came with original titles and everything. Guy owned them his whole life.
Wow.
So I find this guy. It's an estate sale, so this guy had passed away. So I got one of them running. Like it didn't take much. They had a little 2-stroke thing, so it didn't take much to get it running. And I find his obituary. I find that he's survived he's got a daughter. So I go on Facebook. Let me see if I can find, I just want to know more about this motorcycle, because if somebody had these for, again, 54 and 57, so we're looking at about 70 years, 65 to 70 years. If I own something for 65 to 70 years, my kids damn well better keep it. That's just what I'm saying. If I kept it around for that long, you better keep it. And so I was thinking that, maybe this should go back to the family. And I understand why the family got rid of it is because it didn't run, and I don't know how to make it run. So I ended up finding the daughter on Facebook and reached out to her and said, "Hey, I think I have your dad's motorcycles, if this was what your dad's name was," and reached out to her and I said, "Hey, if you want it, you can have it." Right? It's right. I had already did everything I wanted to do with it. Again, I had little money in it. The challenge with me, can I get it up and running, and can I ride it around the block, right? Can I ride it up and down the street whenever I want? Once I do that, I'm kind of done, right? It's mark the box, I'm done. Unless it's one that I'm really into and I'm going to keep forever, you know, that it's going to be one that's going to stick around with me. But after I do that, I'm done. And so sure enough, long story short, she ends up coming down. She's got a 14-year-old son that now this bike gets to stay in the family and kind of move forward. You can get on it, you can ride it, and that was it. And it needed to be with them.
Right. Absolutely.
I just need to be the guy that got it back up and running so it could go home, so to speak.
Right. So I have to learn how to sell stuff or get rid of stuff because I don't have enough space to get more stuff. So I'm in the process of thinking about that now. So I want to make some room, and there's always a +1 coming up. Always is.
Yeah. So I leave it this way: is it's the hobby has to, for me, this motorcycle hobby has to be self-funding. So it has to fund itself. And the only way it funds itself is by, at some point in time, it's got to generate some revenue.
Yeah.
I don't mind that I put some money into it, that I had to have some startup capital to buy the first one. But the very first motorcycle I bought, the Honda Dream, the 305 Dream, it came with 2 tanks, extra side covers, front and rear fenders. I sold everything else that I didn't keep, and I was into the bike. I think I paid $1,100 for the bike, and I think I ended up, after selling all that stuff, I was maybe $200 into the motorcycle.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that allows me to it allowed me to buy tires. It allowed me to do all that other stuff. Plus, every time I sell a bike, I give my wife half of the money.
Right. Yeah.
So she doesn't complain when I pull up with more motorcycles. And so when I'm looking to buy a motorcycle, it's like, okay, if I buy it for this, I can sell it for that, which will afford me to do these things. And I keep it separate, and it keeps me, the one thing that it does do is it keeps me honest about the finances of it, because it can get out of control really quickly. You know, and I'm such a cheapskate because of that. I'm normally not, but because of that, I am. Like the GPZ, as it sits right now, I can't remember the exact number, but I think I'm at just a little over $800 into it. And I put 6,000 miles on it.
Right. I mean, you could put another 8,000 into that bike.
Yeah.
But is it still going to be the same bike? Or are you overspending? You know,
what more could you do to it? I mean, it's like what more could I do that would make it better than it is right now? Could I make it prettier? Could I make it this and that?
Sure.
Yeah, I probably could.
Always room for more. Yep.
There's always room for that. But to me, I think it represents itself very well, and I'm okay with it being, 41 years old and it looking like it could be 41 years old. It doesn't have to look like I just rolled it off the showroom floor today.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I want to just touch on Yoda again.
Yeah, please.
Because in a way, I kind of feel like I'm responsible for talking about motorcycles and sharing my passion and love for it with other people. And I'm always very anxious to talk to younger people. Either they're on a motorcycle, they want to get on a motorcycle. So when he started talking about Yoda, I had no idea what you're talking about. And then I'm like, listening, I'm like, oh, wow. I went through the same thinking. Do you feel like you really have to recruit Jedi now? Because, we got to keep this thing going.
Well, so it's ironic that you say that, and you do. There's something. Thankfully, my older son has had 2 of them. So, 2 kids, and the other reason why we have the channel is to. I never grew up with that. Go hang out with your grandfather in the garage and learn how to do stuff. Go hand him wrenches. Yeah, my grandfathers had both passed away at that point in time, and then there was not that same relationship with my father to go hang out in the garage. So I never grew up with that stuff, and I'm consciously, and I didn't do it just because we were married early or had our kids young. We never had those type of experiences. Our kids played sports, so we didn't do any of that stuff when our kids were younger. but now I get to do it with my grandkids. So it's having that's the main reason why the channel's there. People go, I don't understand that video. Well, you don't have to, because my grandson Jackson loves it. And
Right.
that's all that matters. If you watch it, that's a bonus. If he watches it, we're winning. So,
Yeah.
but long story short, I'm known in my neighborhood as the motorcycle guy, right?
Yeah.
It may be I may be the damn motorcycle guy on some days, or the
All
insert
depends,
whatever
right?
adjective fits based on what motorcycle I'm riding that day. And because I know I'm not always loved, because I think my neighbors do love the fact that when they see me having to push one home, I think they relish in that. They got him back. Finally, one bit him.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I was out riding a motorcycle one day, and I ran into a neighborhood kid, 17 years old. He was on a dirt bike, and I helped him push it off. And then that was it. We never, the chance meeting, met for a second. I didn't even know his name at that point. Well, fast forward about 6 months, he pulls up at my house, and got the garage door open as normal. And he comes up, he goes, hey, I just bought an old motorcycle. He had bought a
All
CB175.
right.
He had bought a CB175, and he goes, you want to come look at it? I said, yeah, no problem. I jumped on a bike and I rode over there, and we're talking about it. And he had his garage door open at the time, and it was full of everything. And we're talking about it. And I said, do you have a place to work on it? He goes, yeah, in there. I'm like, you don't even have room to walk, let alone work on it. And I said, if you want, you can bring it over to my house. You can work on the shop. I said, you can come and go as you please. Treat it like it's yours, clean it like it's mine.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's all we have to do. If you do that, we're all golden. You can come and go anytime you want. The door's always open. You can come in. And so sure enough, he came over, we pulled his engine apart. And I said, the other thing that I'm not going to fix it for you. Again, I'm going to help you through it. You've got a spot in the garage. You can work on it. If you have questions, I'll help you through it. I'm not going to do it for you. And we talked about it. I said, I could fix it and make it run, but there's nothing like a first start, and nothing like a first start when you did it. So sure enough, he was over all the time. And then it got to the point to where he's a busy kid. And I mean that in a very good way. He's got his own business. He had his own business when he flew drones and had a photography business. Owned his first house at 18 years old.
Wow.
Right. Owned his second house before he was 20. Right. It's the guy is well put together, and smart kid. And so sure enough, he had a little gap to where he wasn't coming around, probably for about 4 months. And I'd rolled the bike, put it in the corner, just didn't worry about it. He'll come get it. And he'll come work on it. Sure enough, came back, we ended up finishing up, and that was it. And now he's on like bike number 6. You know, it's
That's
like
great.
he's
Yeah,
got, he
fantastic.
just keeps going. But yeah, you do have to, I do believe that we do have to move the information forward. There's no reason keeping it for us, because what's it going to do for us if we don't share it with somebody else that now we get to hang out about, that they get to share it with somebody else? He gets to live it on. So I don't know if I actively recruit them.
It happens.
It does happen. You know, you run into people. There's a lot of people that want these bikes, and I try to talk, especially if they're younger. I try to talk them out of buying these motorcycles. Like any motorcycle I have for sale, I've talked people out of buying every one of them, because you have to know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
If you're buying this motorcycle to commute to and from work, you need to look for a different motorcycle, because it's 50 years old. And is it going to run? Maybe. Maybe not. You know, my least favorite moment, the most anxiety I get anytime I ride a bike out, regardless of the motorcycle, people go, hey, I want to walk out with you. I want to hear it run. I'm like, so do I.
Yeah.
Because you never know. You never know. And it's 50 years old. I could ride the GPZ out, and I don't know. I think it will. I think it'll start. It ran when parked. I'm not 100% sure that
Love that.
you know, that ran when parked is an honest statement.
It is honest.
You know, so it's 50 years old, and so hopefully it'll work. And people that don't realize that, they get down a road that look, come on, man.
It
you're down the wrong
happens.
road.
It really happens. And
Yeah.
you know, the Pontiac Fiero, I think, is one of
Mhm.
the first cars that the internet ex explored, right? Let's put
Mhm.
this engine in there. A lot of them just
Yeah.
ended up in the scrap pile. Like
Right.
people had no idea how to do this, and they tried it, which was great because it's a cheap vehicle and you might get something interesting out of it. That's cool, experiment. But we lost a lot of these. We
Right.
lost a lot of motorcycles as well.
Mhm.
But
Right.
we also found a lot of motorcycles that other people just could not finish.
That's right.
And there's a bonus point in that, you know. But yeah, it's a matter of timing. It's a matter of these conversations. You know, get yourself out there, get the bikes out there. Don't leave them in the garage. Put miles on the bikes. Meet people, talk about them. Take interest in other people's motorcycles as well. It might not be something that's in your garage or you'll ever own, but man, what is that thing? You know, let's talk about it.
I think the more that we get out and have these type of conversations, the more you ride your motorcycle, not just to bike nights, but just on daily activities.
Ride it. Yep.
You know, if I got to go to the store, the hardware store, the auto parts store, I jump on a motorcycle and take it there because there's somebody there that's got a story, and they'll know somebody who's got one in a barn or it's got one in their garage, and they want to get rid of it.
And if you're
So
really
what
into
happened?
it, as you know, a little bit more than a hobby, and you've got the
Mhm.
space in your garage and you enjoy working on motorcycles, what starts to happen is you start getting these phone calls
Yeah,
from your friends that say, my neighbor's got a KZ650 in a container and he wants to get
yeah,
rid of. Are you interested?
yes.
When can I go pick it up?
That's
Absolutely.
right.
You know,
Yeah,
and that happened and that will continue to happen. So
that's right.
yeah, I mean, I'm really I'm really grateful I stumbled onto this. The bike really found me.
Mhm.
I wasn't looking for specific, you know, in 13 and all that, but it found me and it just like it changed my life completely. The people I've met, the relationships, and just the amount of knowledge and information and building my mechanical skills and all that good stuff happened as a result.
Yeah.
And I encourage anyone to try it. You know?
Dude,
Yeah.
this was awesome.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so
Thank
much.
you so much. I
Thanks,
appreciate
man.
it.
This is, well, like I said before, this is one of my favorite things about this is we've never met before. We've
Zero.
never met before. We just talked for an hour and 15 minutes,
All right.
like we've known each other for forever, right?
Yeah.
And it's that, and I'm so just passionate about this. If we focus on the things that we have in common, the rest of the stuff doesn't matter,
Exactly. Exactly.
right? You know what I mean? It's this thing that just a motorcycle, an old motorcycle that you, because you're passionate about it, somebody else is passionate about these same things. We share that, so that's all that matters in the grand scheme of things when you think about it. So that's why I love these, and I love going into them not knowing, because you discover along the way, and it's awesome, dude. Thanks so much for this.
Keep it going, Eric. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah,